Alright, I'm going to try to write up some of the stuff that I learned this morning or thought about, and it's really just going to be a continuation of further questions. I'll probably start with drawing before I try to make some much nicer like animations. Um, all right. Okay. So the first thing to consider is a behavior type. Whoops. Which can be expressed as B in the beginning. Maybe I'll try adding little text things. Okay, so you have this behavior type. And I think of this more than anything, let's see if we get some shapes, as a thing. It's a very general word. Let's see if this works. Something. The world is full of different kinds of things. And just to test if my definition is even that good, I'm going to write some examples here. A book. Philosophy. President Donald Trump. I'm trying to think of things in like different categories. Love. Satanism. Satkanism. And plural nouns. I'll add another one. What if I think of better examples? People who came to my birthday party which is none. And God, I need to think of something else. I'm going to just add in one more. Running. As you can tell, these are all things that define my identity. Just kidding. Okay. So these are all things. Okay. A behavior type is a thing. Is there any restriction on what a behavior type can be? I'm still learning, but the first thing that we saw, and by the way, this is a presentation on the book Temporal Type Theory, or on the paper. It's a book, yeah. All right, I guess I'll just double check that I got this correct. Temporal Type Theory, David Fake. I think so. Weird. Okay. Behavior type is a thing. However, one important aspect of behavior type is that you have to be able to, like, let me think about this. Okay, conceptually, a behavior type is actually, yeah, let's say this. A thing has a behavior. A thing has a behavior. So now let's consider, like, the behavior of some things. I'm going to imagine a guy called Jeffrey. And here's some things that Jeffrey can do. Oh, pro. Oh, never mind. Okay. So Jeffrey is a person, and he can do all kinds of things. he can insult you. He can complain about his government, about the government. He can write a poem. He can think. He can fall in love. He could hypothetically explode. He can study mathematics, just like we are right now. And he could practice... Actually, let me think of something weirder. He can... I'm going to say he can he can practice karate. So, without thinking about time as a relevant factor, it's quite intuitive to just choose something and then to think, oh, well, what behaviors does that thing have? And this obviously is not an exhaustive list. Jeffrey can do lots of things. And the important thing is that this behavior type, like we could just call it a set of behaviors for now, maybe just behavior set. Yeah, actually, I'll say this. Okay, so I guess I'll skip ahead. You can imagine, actually, I'll do one more example. What are the behaviors of a book? Well, maybe that's an important question to be asking ourselves, because it kind of opens new questions. Should it count? I think it counts as a behavior if it's being acted upon by something else, because it still has certain ways in which it's like a system with you maybe could say degrees of freedom or something. If I touch a book, it's not going to laugh at me, but if I touch a book, it might move across the table. So I think that probably is going to be accounted for in this theory. Okay. A book can lay there. I think that it can also be beautiful. I don't know if this is going to work in temporal type theory, but whatever. A book potentially could fall off a table. And I think that a book can rot if it's just sitting in a damp environment for a long time. And it can get dusty. Okay. And when I say be beautiful, I mean someone is looking at that book and thinking, oh, wow, that's such a beautiful book. Okay, so the idea here is that what we call a behavior type, it's almost like there's kind of three. I almost think of it as a transition of concepts. So we go from thing to a set of behaviors associated with that thing. And this remains an open question, but I would like to believe that anything you can think of could be seen to have a set of behaviors. It's kind of a synonym just for properties, sort of, except for it's almost like actions. And I think that actions, by their very nature, require the axis of time. So I've been thinking a bit about different ways to model the actual world in like formal logic, not just mathematical truths. Um, and I'll come back to that later, hopefully. But my idea is like, in some ways, it's actually, in order to model like real world phenomena, one of the only things that you absolutely need is time. And that's like a very philosophical idea, like Heidegger's being in time. I haven't read it, I want to, but it just seems like it reduces like so much of the world to the most fundamental categories. According to Heidegger, it appears that time is one of them. Time is essential aspect of whenever we say that something is existing. It's existing, it seems, in time, I think is, well, that's my thought anyway. I don't know what Heidegger says. So we'll come back to that, but yeah, I think it's worth considering that, like, as I said, the point here is like anything could be seen to have a set of behaviors. I'm going to write that as a claim. Claim. Anything could be seen to have a set of behaviors. So then what if I say like, well, what about democracy or something? It's like, sure, because right now we haven't really strictly we haven't that strictly controlled like what is and is not allowed to be a behavior type. So what's going on here? For the time being, I would say yeah, sure. If you, let's say democracy is a thing, and then let's say that democracy has a set of behaviors. And 1 second. How do I make it bigger? Oh, I know. Cool. Okay. And then, as I said, it's almost like a transition of concepts, because for any given thing, we can think of of all the behaviors that it has. And then when we look at that collection of behaviors, it's like it has its own character. Like the collection of behaviors that Jeffrey has is very different from the collection of behaviors that a book has. And, obviously we can become imaginative and fantasize about switching these set of behaviors for these things. What if Jeffrey can do these things and a book can do these things? Be interesting. So it's almost like, in looking at the collection of behaviors as a whole, it's like I like to think that it has a characteristic, and we could call that the behavior type. So 1 second. And oh man, I feel like I've been pretty neat in this presentation so far, but it's very likely going to devolve soon into just a bunch of open-ended questions I have. But this is this question I've been thinking about for a while, which is like, we sometimes define something and then we claim that it's associated with certain other things. But sometimes there are situations, I think, when you study like ontology, or when you try to break everything apart into like the smallest possible pieces, where you realize that instead of there being a thing a priori and then it having these like components that kind of add information to it or something, the thing itself is defined by those components. Without those components, there's nothing left. And so we come to this, I think we come to this weird philosophical question that I want to explore later, which is like, should we say that a thing has a behavior type? Or should we just say, at the end of the day, everything is itself a behavior type? It's actually identifiable with a behavior type, and that's all there is to it. There's, like, just hypothetically, when you have something's collection of behaviors, you have that thing, especially under a very broad definition of behavior. So that's like, I feel like there's way more to be said and asked about that. But in a way, that's how the book, I think that's what the book kind of starts out with, is like they're saying that they don't use the word thing. They just start out with saying, oh, there's such a thing as a behavior type, and a behavior type is the collection of all possible behaviors over some time interval. So yeah, that's kind of like an introduction. The next thing that they say, so here's a few things that come next. First of all, you have to be able to basically well, I don't know what a good verb for this is, but they call this a section of a behavior type. And the section is denoted by L. And L stands for the length of a window of time. 1 second. Okay, that's called a section, and that's just like, damn, I'm like sweating in my car. This is not gonna work. I'm gonna have to resume this video later, but the point is there's gonna be two rules. One is about restrictions, and one is about composition of time windows. So this is to be continued.